Councillor McConkey, good evening. You have a time-sensitive item?
I do, thank you.
Okay.
It's on page 21 of the agenda.
Okay.
I had tried to have it in as a time-sensitive simply because our next council meeting is not for 6 weeks, and this is about investigating the workability of opening a warming center.
Hold up a sec. So there is a notice of motion that we have on our agenda at this time.
I'd like to bring it forward to time-sensitive.
You'd like to bring it forward. So the procedure with a notice of motion is that we don't usually deal with it here. It's usually sent to a committee. So that's what the normal procedure is. If you want to bring this forward, it's what we need is 2/3. So why don't we try that first, okay?
Thank you.
Okay,
it was originally sent in as a time-sensitive.
Okay. So you're moving it, second by Councillor Neal. Okay, let's get to the 2/3 first. 2/3 in regards to this particular item.
A recorded vote, please.
Recorded vote, Madam Clerk, please.
Councillor McConkey?
Yes.
Councillor Neal?
Yes.
Councillor Nicholson?
Yes.
Councillor Chapman?
Yes.
Councillor Giberson?
Yes.
Councillor Gray?
Yes.
Councillor Hurst?
Yes.
Councillor Kerr?
Yes.
Councillor Mayor Pietri?
Yes.
Councillor Marks?
Yes.
Mayor Carter?
Yes.
11 affirmative.
Okay, so the motion, would you like to put the motion forward, please?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So
Moved by yourself and second by?
I'd like to read it.
Yep, but
Myself.
first, second? Okay, thank you. Go ahead and read it.
That staff investigate the workability of, and I'm going to actually leave it in, but I don't think that the workability of 44 Simcoe Street South is going to actually be optimal now. And I've put in brackets, if the landlord permits the city using the leased premises as a warming center for unsheltered. And I'm really concentrating on the basement of Memorial Park Bandshell as a warming center as soon as possible and over the next 5 months to ensure no unsheltered persons in the city of Oshawa are at risk of hypothermia. And now, therefore, Oshawa Council give direction to staff to engage any and all of the following: the Region of Durham Health and Social Services Department, CARIA, the John Howard Society, and appropriate social service agencies, faith groups, and municipal bylaw officers to assist with the speedy implementation of this 5-month pilot project. I was indicating previously that there is a gap. Some of the facilities that are available to the unsheltered are not open 24/7, that a number of them are only open till 10 at night and open again at 5:30 in the morning. So to cover that gap, I would be promoting this proposal to be basically to fill in those times. The basement of the band shell has 2 rooms, one large that's for band practices, and the other is a fairly large room as well for storage. And they really suit the need for the unsheltered, especially that have pets. So the 2 rooms, one side could be those that really do not want to be separated from their pets. That's really basically all they have to, show love and have unconditional love from. And the other side, just to have separation. So if anyone has allergies or whatever, there'd be the 2 rooms utilized. The basement of the band shell is heated. I've checked with our facilities staff, and then of course we have the accessible washrooms that are available there. So I know it's kind of a Band-Aid solution at this point, because I know there's a lot of people working on trying to get some great things happening, but this I was looking at as something that I would hope we could get support and get initiated as soon as possible, as sort of a plan that might help. And we do not want to have anyone freezing to death in this city this winter. So that's why it's time sensitive. The cold weather is happening, and there you go. Thank you very much.
Okay. Speakers to the motion. Councillor Nicholson. Microphone, please, sir.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to support the motion because it's a step in the right direction. Hopefully it can be done as quickly as possible. We have worked long and hard, and I can read the list of the people who have been involved. Everyone's trying to find a solution. I've not heard anybody yet say, no, it's not our job, or no, we don't want to find a solution. We have to overturn any rock, as they say. We have to look under every option we've got to try and find a solution. This is a direction to staff to continue to investigate these as options, not just these options, but these two alone. It is obvious from all the discussions we have, the only long-term solution is going to be a full-service shelter or warming center combination that's available to all those who are homeless, who have pets, similar to the George Victor Center, which is located in Toronto. That's the pilot for across the country for undertaking this. Obviously, we're not going to pass all the directions and all the issues tonight, but we need to understand that all the work we do will just have to continue year after year until we find that permanent solution. And that the days of us simply saying it's not our role as a council, I think, are over, and that we need to aggressively move towards a full-time solution. I have a subsequent motion, Mr. Chair, that I would bring forward as an interim step if this were to carry, and I hope members of council will give it strongest consideration.
Okay. Councillor Gray?
Yes, I'd like to ask our Commissioner of Corporate Services for a bit of information. First of all, the terms of warming stations, warming centers gets thrown around. Could you give me a definition of what those terms mean?
Good evening, Commissioner Adams. To the question, please.
Through the mayor to Councillor Grace. So the unofficial definition, the warming centers, that is a place where someone can come to a facility and warm up. For instance, our recreation facilities, sometimes you'll see individuals here at City Hall, so they come out of the cold and they warm up. A warming station is a location, and this was brought forward when Daniel Cullen was here at our, I think it was our last council meeting. And that's a station, or that facility, in addition to providing space to warm up, they'll also be given a beverage and some food to eat, but it's not a place to sleep. And then we have shelters, and that's a place where all of the above.
Okay. I was wondering if you could speak to capacity for me. Do we need, in other words, do we need another shelter? What's our capacity right now?
Commissioner, to the question, please.
Through the mayor to Councillor Gray, my understanding and the conversations that I've been having with the region of Durham is that the plan that has been put in place through the GAP committee in conjunction with Durham Region, and that was that calendar that was provided by Daniel Cullen, that's the plan that they have put in place for this year. My understanding is that the warming center that's being provided by First Light Foundation, that's 4 days a week in Oshawa. We've had subsequent conversations with First Light, and they would be prepared to offer 7 days a week overnight.
Okay. And could you just remind me, which level of government? Is it the City of Oshawa, or is it the region of Durham that actually oversees this and provides the funding?
Commissioner?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gray. So with regard to shelters, that's the regional responsibility. Warming centers, though, is up to local municipalities, and often facilities are used for those that want to come out of the cold to warm up.
Okay. So with respect to the motion, it uses the warming center as soon as possible. So that would just be something that's from the time of what, 7 in the morning, 6 in the morning, through to 10 o'clock at night? What would be the hours for that?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gray, if we're speaking of our facilities, it would be our hours of operation. But as I had indicated, that there was a calendar that's been developed in collaboration with the GAP committee, as well as the other social service agencies and the region of Durham, and they really have spearheaded over the last few months to provide as much coverage as possible throughout the day. So I think, and when I take a look at the calendar, which I'm sure not everyone has in front of them, but I've been studying it a lot lately. So they start at 5:30 in the morning, and they'll go right through to 10 o'clock at night at various locations. And as I indicated, there are 3 nights a week where First Light Foundation of Hope is open from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. So almost 24 hours coverage on some days of the week.
Okay. So, and you're indicating that the GAP committee can provide a service that would be 7 days a week, but again, that's not shelter, that's just the rest of the day. Not
Commissioner?
a place to sleep.
Yeah, so through the mayor, so just for clarity, it's not the GAP committee. They've been part of the solution, but it's the various social service agencies within Oshawa that are opening their doors at specific times on specific days to help bridge that gap. So, and it's not quite 24 hours. When you take a look, there are some pockets, as I indicated, First Light Foundation of Hope, they're open overnight, 3 nights a week.
Okay, and so that can be expanded, and they're willing to expand it, is that correct?
Commissioner?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gray, yes, that's correct. They're willing to extend their hours so that they're open 7 nights a week.
Okay. Now, I want to talk about capacity. What was the experience last year?
Commissioner?
Did we ever exceed capacity?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gray, my understanding from Cornerstone is that they did have an Out of the Cold program that they ran last year, and the feedback that we received is that there wasn't enough uptake, and so therefore they're not running it this year because of the lack of uptake.
Okay, that's very interesting. Now, presently, I imagine we've got some people who are actually still out in the outdoors camping. Is that correct?
Commissioner?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gray, I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, so they may have found accommodation just because it's getting so cold.
Commissioner?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gray, I have heard that, but again, I can't confirm that.
That's fair enough. Now, my understanding is that we have no ability to force somebody off the streets and into shelter space. My understanding is that's just absolutely not allowed. Somebody has to ask us for help. We can't force them. Is that correct?
Commissioner?
Through the mayor, I'm not 100% sure. I would assume yes, but again, I'm not an expert in this area. This is really Durham Region.
Okay. So I guess my last question would be, so if somebody did come to us and say, it's too cold out here, I want to go in, I want to be warm in the wintertime, is there support systems to make that happen?
Commissioner?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gray, yes, there is.
Okay. So I guess the bottom line then is, do we need to open up space at Memorial Park, or if somebody needs help, they could get it?
Commissioner?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gray, I think that's a decision before members of council.
Well, no, I'm saying, do we need to open up this space, or is there an ability to place somebody if they need the space? Is this going to be an essential piece of the puzzle, or is this just, we're going to make ourselves feel good when there already is the support and the system in place?
Commissioner?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gray, my understanding is that if anyone is looking for shelter, that absolutely space is being provided. And again, we work closely with Durham Region to make sure that no one is turned away.
Okay, that's good. And now that leads me to one more question. And is it true that the region would actually put somebody up in a motel if that was necessary on especially cold nights?
Commissioner?
If there was no more capacity left?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gray, that's correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman?
Thank you. Just so we understand, shelters are the responsibility of the region, and anybody that needs a shelter, when we have cold alerts, we expand, I'm speaking as the Chair of Health and Social Services, we expand the number of beds by 93 minimum. We do not turn anybody away because we have contracts with various motels and hotels so that people can, shelters where you sleep. You go in at night and sleep. The stations are also the warming stations, and there's 2, and I understand Councillor Nicholson has a motion based on what Commissioner Adams was saying about expanding one of them. The first bit of that money comes from the federal government through the region, and it's put out on a request for proposal. 2 organizations have stepped forward to do 7 days in total. I think it's 4 in Ajax, 3 in Oshawa, and we're working on getting, Councillor Nicholson has a motion, I believe, to expand the one in Oshawa. And there is transport that is given when these people come. If they can't get, if the station is full in Oshawa, we would get them to Ajax, right? Warming centers are where people come in during the day, could be our facilities, come into 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, then the station picks up for them to sit overnight. It's not for them to sleep from 10 to 5 or 6 in the morning. The shelter's where they sleep. The GAP committee and Daniel Cullen came here and spoke about it, is they've been the overarching coordinator of all these groups, these faith groups, these other social services, to make sure that there is some time from when normal business hours in the downtown, for example, close, like the library might close, the city hall is closed, that provide that space to keep people warm from whatever it is, 5 o'clock at night till 9 o'clock at night. Plus, they provide them, in most cases, with coffee, pizza, donuts, something like that. The big crux that came this year, and it's an unknown factor, is about some of them with animals. Some of the homeless with animals. We don't know how many people have animals. We've heard various reports from the PCOP, which are those, the ambulance and social worker go around. They haven't seen anybody like that. That doesn't mean there isn't any of them. To put them into shelters and warming stations and stuff like that, there are some issues with the health department. There are some issues with with people's allergies and all that. And I think Councillor Nicholson, working with Commissioner Adams, has come up with at least a stopgap for this year, and then we can look forward. The big thing that you need to remember between warming centers, stations, and shelters is they all have to be staffed. And first off, the warming centers are staffed mostly by volunteers, but all those volunteers have some kind of qualifications in case somebody needs CPR, needs first aid. We need to have that sort of stuff. Those ones are easy because they're volunteers generally. It's in the basement of a church. We don't have to worry about the fire department because there's already exits and things like that. The stations, they get a little higher training level, and that's part of the issue when they come out. They have to provide an insurance piece to make sure they're covered, and they need a little higher training. Both of these groups, though, have the contacts in for these people when they reach out to them, to the social services network if they need it, i.e. mental health issues, medical issues, and counseling of those types of things, addiction issues. They have the connections for that. So that's an issue that has to. The shelters have more readily available counselors. They may not be working at 3 o'clock in the morning, but they have a better access to those counselors and to do those needs. And this is all being coordinated by the Social Service Department. The Commissioner of Social Services is looking at this. Councillor Nicholson is talking about, shelters that we need to be pet friendly and all that. She's looking at that stuff because the shelter system does need to be modernized from a barrack room type to a better room that will entice some of these people to go there. Last year, the Out of the Cold program, the uptake of it was like 79%. The shelters were only 79% full on the coldest days of the year last year. And that's why Cornerstone did not do the Out of the Cold this year. That's why the GAP committee organized with all our friends in the faith community and that to get these warming things. We don't need to create a crisis. We don't need to open 27 of these things. We don't need to open more of them. They're already in place right now, ready to start. I think it's Wednesday this week they start opening up on Wednesday this week. They've got their staff. They've got everything that they need, with the exception of that one piece that's going to come later on tonight, I'm sure, and I would hope everybody would support that. We don't need to open up another facility and staff it and provide that thing. We have enough right now based on all the statistics and the extras that have been put in place this year and hopefully will be put in place if Council supports Councillor Nicholson's motion. So I will not be supporting this. I don't think staff need to investigate this at this stage. I think what we need to do is let the Commissioner of Social Services at the region carry on with some of the discussions that, frankly, you and I have had with her about the shelter system, including all the issues that have been brought up by other people. I think that investigation can be done by the regional social services staff because they're the experts in that social services item. Our staff aren't. They work hard in that, and they accomplish a lot, but they're not the experts in that field. So I'm not going to support this opening up the band shell or 44 Simcoe Street. I think the process that we have with the addition of what Councillor Nicholson is going to bring tonight is all we need right now, and we let the Commissioner of Social Services and her staff, her professional staff, look deeper into needs that we can step ahead in a different direction next year if needed.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr?
Thank you, Mayor Carter. I too am I'm not going to support this motion for a particular reason that hasn't been mentioned yet. And the key to any cold weather situation is communication. And so what the GAP Committee has done as one of its 5 areas of focus this year to improve on this is to come up with, they've constructed community message boards. And they're going to be located in at least 4 prime locations for people who are looking for this kind of information, and possibly 5. And the information will be the GAP committee schedule and any kind of community notifications of what's available on that day and in the coming days. These will be going up this week as well. So as Daniel Cullen has said, he's not in support of this either. He said that we have the capacity right now, and we also have the flex capacity to increase it should we need even more spots. So I think it's a well-meaning motion, but based on what's already being done out there in the committee and how it's growing and developing, I don't think we need this. Thank you.
I don't usually allow this, but I'm going to allow you to close on it. So please go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. I don't know, there's some confusion. This is not about a shelter. I've heard good comments, of course, from the Chair of Region Health and Social Services, Councillor Chapman. But this is simply to fill a gap that when Daniel Cullen spoke at the last council meeting, it was pretty obvious that there were 3 or 4 days a week where there is that gap between 10 o'clock at night and 5:30 in the morning. If that's being filled, that's very encouraging to hear, but there's still that piece of the discussion here that's missing about those with pets not being allowed and in, I think it's the First Light of Hope. It's a small premise. What we have here is a city facility that is not being utilized over the winter months, 2 large rooms, heated, again, accessible washrooms. And to me, it just makes sense. If it's not being used, then no problem. We shut it down. But at this moment in time, I just see an opportunity there to do something. The other options that do not involve accessible for pets, I think we've got to, the separation of these people is tough. They're not going to come to a facility that does not allow them to bring their pets. And I understand, having talked to people that work with the GAP and work in the community with animals, there are about 9 right now that they're aware of. I think the Commissioner, maybe through a municipal bylaw, would know that there are people living in tents in this city, unfortunately, this winter, and it's just to accommodate them. And I do look for support, and I'll ask for a recorded vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Recorded vote, please, called by Councillor McConkey. On the motion?
Councillor McConkey?
Yes.
Councillor Neal?
Yes.
Councillor Nicholson?
Yes.
Councillor Chapman?
No.
Councillor Giberson?
No.
Councillor Gray?
No.
Councillor Hurst? No. Councillor Kerr?
No.
Councillor Marin-Pietro?
Yes.
Councillor Marks?
No.
Mayor Carter?
No.
4 affirmative, 7 negative.